With returns, revolutions, and revelations, is a lot to pack in for the Foundation finale. So as always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review. So if you haven't seen it, I am going to be reviewing Foundation Episode 10, The Leap, and it will contain spoilers, so this is going to be your only warning. Now, to start this episode opens like most of them with Gal talking about her mother. We see Harry's coffin, and this is the real Harry from episode 1 and 2 being destroyed by a sun. And I thought maybe this was a metaphor for the fall, but we do get more information on this later in the episode, and it's a lot more key in actual real life implications rather than any sort of metaphor or analogy. But we also get some snazzy new titles as well. I don't know why they changed them on the finale when we know we're getting a second season. Maybe they're going to change the intro for the second season, but I do hope they keep that theme song because I really enjoyed it and I did kind of miss it this week. It was in the background, but we didn't get the full bombastic normal one that we get with all those great graphics. So on Terminus, picking up where we left off from the last episode, Harry is talking to the fractions and he points out that they've been at each other's throats for so long they're not sure how it started. Now, what I found odd is that none of these people seem shocked, as apparently there's a fully conscious dead man walking about asking them questions and giving them orders. Harry's reminding them of their past, and what happened was a Thespian king married an Anacrean huntress, and basically she was killed by the king on their wedding night. But we find out that this isn't true. What happened was Cleon II, so you've got to remember, these are all clones, so this is the first clone. He seen the union as a threat with these two powers coming together, and he staged it so it looked like there was a murder to destabilise them. And I have to say, I thought this was pretty interesting, as he's using a very, very basic concept of psychohistory to eliminate something before it happens, or at least try and control an event. We will get a lot more of that in this episode, so I'm going to get to it. Harry explains that the Foundation are going to need these alliances. He's also a bit shocked that Gal's not there, and it does seem that the two holograms aren't necessarily linked. The hologram explains that finding the Invictus was the first test, and he's starting to show the true scope of the Foundation. It's not creating an encyclopedia, it's going to be a force to help rebuild. In fact, it's going to be a power in itself. He explains that it wasn't about getting the knowledge together, but getting the right people together. And yeah, I totally get where he's coming from. If you know anything about the books, you know the direction that this is going in. I've mentioned in my previous videos, I was shocked that they've already mentioned the second Foundation. So this is going to play a huge part in the second season. Harry wants them to fake the destruction of the Foundation on Terminus so they can work in secret. He knows that there has to be a war, and the Foundation is going to become a force to be reckoned with if everything all goes to plan. Remember, not everything's panning out the way that Harry originally planned it, more specifically with Gal not being on Terminus. But Harry isn't the only one that's shocked. Salvor's got a few questions as well, and Harry doesn't know anything about the visions. He says that they aren't from him or the vault and that he disappears, but this isn't going to be the last time that we're going to see this guy, either through the vault or maybe the hologram that Gal had with her in the dagger. He does explain where he came from though, and that the original Harry, just before he died, swallowed some nanites, who, when he died, they broke down his body into constituent parts and reassembled them into the vault. So that opening scene was initially the formation of the vault, or the very first stage, kind of like a butterfly, I suppose. But not everyone on Terminus in the Foundation is happy. Salvor's mum's angry that Harry told the Foundation that they wouldn't really be active participants in the fall. She thought they'd just be sitting it out in the bunker, so to speak, as the nukes fly overhead. And Salvor feels let down as well. She's always had this connection with the vault and Harry, and she's grown up thinking that she's linked to Harry. And she starts to even question if the visions are real or there might be something wrong with her. So not everything's where it should be according to Harry's plan, so the next stage of the Foundation might be very rocky. Now, there is a bit of a time jump, and we see the Foundation expand on Terminus as well as a sort of refit or reworking of the Invictus. Hugo becomes captain of the Invictus, and they're going through with Harry's plan so the Foundation can go into hiding. We also find out that they're building another ship as well, but it's about a year and a half away from being completed, which that might mean something in season 2, but at the moment, I don't know why they brought that up. But Salvor keeps seeing Gal in her visions, and she goes to the vault and sees Gal as a child, so she still believes, she just doesn't know what's behind it. And we do, as I mentioned, get quite a few revelations in this episode, and this is one of the first ones. Salvor's mother tells her that she comes from Gal's egg, so in effect, Gal's her mother, but not only that, Raish is her father. So both the kids that she's been seeing are them in her visions. This explains why she has Gal's powers, or at least something similar. And as for Raish's death in the first, he did die in the first episode, we've seen him die later on, but you know what I mean. But Raish's story and arc in the books are radically different. I thought this was something that we aren't going to see, but we might get some of these stories through Salvor's connection to her father. Salvor thinks that Gal is still out in space where they left her on the first episode after Harry's death. And, you know, she's kinda right, and I do look forward to these characters meeting, but when they do meet, Salvor's going to be a little bit older than Gal. So I did initially think that we might get a different actress for Salvor in season 2, but there's more to come in this episode. But that's enough for Terminus at the moment. Back onto Trantor. And there's trouble between the brothers. Dusk is looking at the new Dawn clone. Day thanks Dusk for exposing the plot, and they're debating what needs to be done with their younger brother. They find out that the rebels have been altering Dawn's DNA for years, and they've made a lot of changes to it. I do think Roselle still might play a key role in this going back, because this has been going on for quite a while, that it gets explained in a moment, and we do get a lot more of Roselle, and I'll get into that in a second as well. But we get a lot of back and forth between the clones. Dawn explains how hard it's been to fit in, and you can see in his face that Day's kind of hurt and let down, and I don't know betrayed, because Day does seem to be a little bit more progressive. But Dawn really does break down his sort of quite a good argument, is that none of these guys have real parents. They don't have a mother or father, so they don't have a connection outside themselves, and they don't really have any partners either, so it's understandable he wants more in his life. But are these parties DNA changes, or is this the real him? Because the whole thing with the clones gets opened up spectacularly here. He also makes a good point that every clone is basically a chapter in a book that's already been written, as they're just fulfilling the same role again and again. And you can see that this really gets to Day in quite a big way. He goes to visit Azura, and I guess I was initially thinking he wants to know if she'll have the same effect on him as he had, or she had, on his younger brother. He explains that he knows what his image is, that he's a tyrant, but he looks at the bigger picture, not just the one person or the individual, which is kind of the exact opposite way that psychohistory operates, which I thought was interesting. He says that when he was younger, he did entertain some thoughts similar to his younger brother, but he just wanted to fit in like the rest of the Cleons. And he does view his younger brother as a son as well as a brother. He feels Azura has robbed him of his role to help raise a good Cleon. And this is where Day gets really nasty, and this is going back to sort of the way he was in the first episode before all the stuff with the spiral. So he tells her that he's found all her family and friends and basically anyone that she's had contact with in her life, which is a total of 1,551 people. And he's all had them targeted for assassination. So he's pointing out that he can rub her out of existence, but that he can't be, he'll be forever along with the rest of his brothers. And he doesn't kill her, but what he does is he sentences her to prison, and it's not a normal prison sentence. I would say it's a fate worse than death. I'm not going to go into detail, not because it's spectacularly graphic, it's just very, very sadistic, and I think you should go into it seeing or getting your own fresh reaction, because I was like, man, this guy's back on point, he has not changed. But Day and Dusk have a sort of trial for their younger brother. Dusk isn't happy, and I can understand that. He's the oldest and therefore the most Cleon, so he's going to see any change as a complete challenge to himself and the Empire and the genetic dynasty. And after the events of the spiral, although he lied about his vision, Day does seem to be changed by the experience a little bit. I think he's beginning to realise that the status quo does need to change within the Empire in order for them to survive, and he's beginning to heed Harry's message, because he's already seen that his older brother didn't take that much notice of it, and things didn't go so well in the following 35 or 40 years since the start of the season. But I don't think he wants huge changes, he just wants small ones that letting his brother live. And this is where it all really starts to kick off. Physical between Day and Dusk, and there's a real power struggle with them, and I do mean not just physically but also emotionally within the scene as well. But Roselle ends the fight pretty much straight away when she kills Dawn, and I was actually almost screaming at the TV when this happened. This isn't our only big scene in this episode, and like I say, I think there's a lot more to Roselle that we've seen in this season, and she's got a lot more motive behind her and a lot more history, because there's been huge chunks of her timeline that we haven't seen. And if you know anything about the books, you know how Roselle's connected to a few things that have been hinted at and mentioned already in the season so far. But after the death, Dusk doesn't really seem that bothered. He just wants a new clone processed and up by the next day. But you can tell that Day sees this as a real chance that change has effectively died in front of him. The guy really wants to get on top about what's going on with the Empire and the future of the clones and Dynasty, but without a changed Dawn, there won't be a changed Day. There's just going to be another franchised manufactured Cleon that's been spat out and has to follow the role, which isn't going to change anything. But conflict with the clones was bound to happen. I've talked about it in several videos, and I think it would still be interesting if one of these guys decides to split off and do his own thing and go rogue. It could be a huge threat to the other two brothers, or I suppose three brothers, because they would just clone him. But Dusk wants to just maintain the status quo, or at least the status quo that he sees. We do get a little bit more backstory on what's been going on with the changes in the DNA as well. Day finds out that the rebels haven't just changed Dawn's DNA, they changed the original Cleons that have been kept in suspension that we've seen all the way through the season. So effectively, there won't be any more original Cleon copies, if that makes sense. Original copies, but you know what I mean, a copy of the original Cleon's DNA, because that's been changed. So effectively, they've tampered with the source of water for everyone. Now, they don't know when this happened. They know that Dawn is affected. They also suspect Day has been, and maybe well as Dusk. Dawn and Day are confirmed, but if Dusk hasn't been changed, this could lead to the rogue power dynamic that I just mentioned a minute ago. And I do think that Roselle has had some sort of hand in these changes. Her whole line throughout the season is, my role is to preserve the dynasty, and I think to preserve it you need to help change it and help it go through change, but it could backfire and she might not get the change that she wants. Now, even after all this, there's more to come. There's a third act to the episode, and it's 138 years, so it's Gal arriving on her home planet at Synnax. She lands on the planet and she finds out that her home's been destroyed, as she predicted earlier on in the season. So there's pretty much no one on the planet other than her, but she does find a cryopod underwater, and all that season 2 stuff has gone out the window because it's fucking Salvor that's in the cryopod, and I couldn't believe this. I had all these questions written down in theories about season 2, about what was going to happen in the quest with Salvor to find Gal, and they've tied it up already at the end of season 1. Also, after all the complaints of the pace of this show being ridiculously slow, it pretty much hits us with a hammer about 2 or 3 times in this finale. Salvor tells her that she's been waiting over a century for Gal to arrive, and she tells her that she's her daughter as well. So man, this episode, what? I can't get over how good this episode was and how well it sets up things for season 2 and the possibilities. There's still a lot of questions here, a lot happened. So what's happened with the dynasty in the last 138 years? What about the rest of the clones? Where's Harry's plan in the Foundation and the second Foundation, are they about as well? And I can't wait to see how all these questions are answered and what Gal and Salvor get up to. Now, all in all, I have enjoyed Foundation from start to finish. I do think there was a few slower episodes. I'm going to go back and binge watch it and see if I get any of my opinions changed on that. So I'm going to make a video reviewing season 1 and also doing some predictions for season 2. So keep an eye out for that and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please like this video. My name's Al, thanks for watching and have a great weekend.